was very interested in your phrase, the geometry of experience. I think it's a very interesting idea there. And you mentioned about the circular nature of the writing and experience.
Yeah.
And in that context, you mentioned about maybe is it to do with the rooting for the past, as in going back to. But in that context, also, then you mentioned about this straight line journey. And in that sense, do you also explore what is yet not there, as in which hasn't happened, in terms of the spiritual dimension of what ought to be rather than what is or has been, and to what extent your own kind of as a person journey along the lifespan actually has influenced your writing in that sense?
Yeah, well, in the sense of the geometry of experience, my own life has been very much affected and in its relation to, as I've got older, different geometries have come into play. I was saying the period when I was a gardener, when I was a very young man in London, I was doing these sort of little jagged lines and trying to join up, trying to impose a geometry, so that I started to play with the theories of that actually these structures, like these churches, actually had a relation to each other. You could draw lines between them, made patterns. There was a sort of pattern making of landscape that related back to books like a woman called E.O. Gordon wrote a book about prehistoric monuments of London, so that actually things physically related in a geometrical sense, but it was much more fragmentary. And then I got older and I started to do longer walks, but again they were more in straight lines to a destination. You're walking just to a place, and the outcome of that journey was not known. I don't know why, then suddenly the notion of the circular journey became important, and I think it to some extent relates to the form of writing, that actually it makes a nice shape for a book if you're coming back to where you started. That goes all the way back to the Odyssey. And the Odyssey is such a model for all kinds of modernist experiments. Obviously, Joyce's Ulysses and Ezra Pound's cantos start with the idea of this voyage that is a return. It's you've been out to the place of war and battle. You've had your challenges. And you're now trying to go back to the place where the home, the wife, the whole thing. So it becomes a sort of circular voyage, fraught with dangers and challenges and possibilities for not making that journey successful. And I think that becomes one form to do that. And I got very taken with that. But then again, when you do arrive back, what's the next chapter? I mean, in a sense, it could be a whole life. Yeah, if it was Ezra Pound's cantos, then the whole journey of your writing could be caught up in this one shape. But I've done them on a smaller scale, and the journey is there, and then what next? So it kind of becomes a series of interlinking circles, spirals, that become a sort of almost a DNA thing, I guess. I don't know where it goes to as we go on, but it definitely, the geometry connects to different periods of a life. It's an interesting question.